Hey everyone, it is the third Wednesday of the month of June in the year 2016, and as always on the third Wednesday of a month, I am bringing you guys Commander on a Budget. This is a monthly series I do, obviously, based on the description I just gave you. It is a monthly series I do where I present you guys with a Commander deck built on a relative budget, usually about less than 50 tickets on Magic Online and $200 or less in paper. And this month we're looking at Reki, the History of Kamigawa. This is the commander that was chosen both by my Twitter followers and by people commenting on last month's Commander on a Budget, which was Rasputin Dreamweaver. It beat out Mistform Ultimus, but I'm probably actually going to do Mistform Ultimus next month, so you get to see both of them. So Reki's kind of, in a way, the commanderiest of all commanders. He loves legendary spells, and, Commander involves legendary things. And basically, he turns every legendary spell you have into a cantrip. And this is actually, it seems sort of innocuous, but it's a very powerful effect. If most of your deck is legendary spells and you make everything into a cantrip, all of those spells become much better than they already were. Some of them, which are usually not the most playable things ever, become very playable. So this deck is built around a legendary theme. It's mono green, obviously, because Reiki's my commander. We'll talk about the lands real quickly. We have mostly forests, for a reason I'll mention later. But we have Blighted Woodland to help us ramp. We also have Nykthos. Is in any mono-colored commander deck you want Nykthos. Oran Reef, which loves green creatures, and we're mono-green. Reliquary Tower, which makes it so we have infinite hand size, meaning if we draw too many cards with Reki, we don't have a problem. Treetop Village, just a nice creature land. And Yavimaya Hollow, which can regenerate our creatures. Other than that, it's all forests. So here we have our staples, the things you expect to see in most commander decks of this color. We have Mana Vault, we have Soul Ring, we have Thought Vessel, which I guess isn't quite a staple, but it also gives me a maximum hand size and helps me ramp. Felwar Stone, Cultivate, Eternal Witness, this should be in every green commander deck you have. Kodama's Reach, Gilded Lotus, nice, one of the best mana rocks there is. Garrick Primal Hunter, you could put a lot of different planeswalkers in here, but this is the one I like the most for this deck. Seedborn Muse is great in any green commander deck. Untaps all your stuff on every upkeep, including your opponent's. Untap step, rather. Duplicant. A problem green has, in general, is an inability to remove creatures. And so I have to run some artifacts that remove things, and Duplicant's one of them. We also have Green Warden of Murasa here, who is like a super Eternal Witness. Deadwood Treefolk is great because it lets me get back 2 creature cards from my graveyard over time. Brittle Effigy, another artifact removal spell. Well, a removal spell for creatures. That's an artifact, I should say. Mold Shambler, which is great in any green deck as well. And actually, Ratchet Bomb should be over here too. Another artifact removal spell. So this stack here is cards that have special synergy with legendary things. So we have Time of Need, which is a great tutor in this deck. Being able to pay 2 and search my library for almost any creature in my deck is great. Konda's Banner. It also happens to be legendary, so when I play it, I get to draw a card. But it can only be equipped to a legendary creature. Luckily for us, we have tons of legendary creatures. We don't even need our commander in play to use this, so that's nice. Honor Worn Shaku, which, if I have enough legendary permanents in play, can add a ridiculous amount of mana to my mana pool. Hero's Blade, which is nice because it equips for free to legendary creatures when they come into play. Hero's Podium, which is nice because it's like a legendary coat of arms, but on top of that, it also lets me pump a bunch of mana into its X effect to look for any legendary I want to. And Champion's Helm, which, is a good piece of equipment in general, and it gives almost all the creatures in my deck hexproof. So this stack here is all legendary creatures. It's probably the largest single stack I've ever had. Legendary permanents, I should say. But we'll go through and talk about each of them rather quickly. We have Yisan, who's good but not incredible in our deck because we don't actually have any 1 or 2s that are creatures, so we won't do anything till the 3rd. Of course, when you get there, it starts getting ridiculous. Bow of Nylea is a nice little utility artifact / enchantment that happens to be legendary, so it draws us a card. We can make creatures bigger. We can damage creatures with flying. We can gain life. Or we can put cards from our graveyard on the bottom of our library, which sometimes we want to do if we have Time of Need or Hero's Podium in play. Dosan the Falling Leaf is nice. This deck has no instants in it, I don't think, so we make everyone else experience sorcery, speed, magic, just as we have to. Hua Tuo, Honored Physician, is nice because he gets you back creatures from your graveyard. Miri Cat Warrior is, just a bunch of keywords on a good creature. If your opponent has forests, she's unblockable too, so that's nice. Seton Krosan Protector is basically just a 3-mana mana dork, but he draws you a card that makes him a lot better. I think he's the only druid in our deck, so, it really only affects him. Sword of the Animist is kind of a staple at this point in Commander, but it's really good in this deck because it's also legendary, and it also helps us ramp. Hall of Triumph, we're a monocolored deck, so it's good anyway, but it also happens to be legendary, so there you go. Oath of Nissa, one of the newer additions to this deck, which is nice because it lets you pick a card from your top 3, and on top of that, we get to draw a card if we have Reki in play. Umezawa's Jite, one of the best equipments ever printed, and we want it here. It's legendary. Isao Enlightened Bushi is a nice blocker for a very long time, also can't be countered, sometimes relevant. Grimoire of the Dead is nice. It's legendary, but if my opponent lets me get 3 study counters on it, and our game's been going on for a while, my opponent just loses because Grimoire of the Dead is crazy when you make it fire off. Yeva gives all of our green creatures flash, which is basically all the creatures in our deck, in addition to being legendary herself. Surak can start giving things haste, in addition to being legendary. Sosuke, son of Sashiro. I do have a few other snakes in the deck, and I do have other warriors in the deck, too, so his other 2 effects are relevant, and he's a 4-mana 3/4 who lets me draw a card. Sachi, daughter of Sashiro. So this one is pretty sweet because Reki actually happens to be a shaman as well. So Sachi actually pumps, not pumps, but gives Reki the ability to add mana, which if you play turn 3 Reki, turn 3 Sachi, turn 4 Sachi rather, you have a ton of mana very early. Kodama the South Tree, there's a few spirits in the deck that make his effect go off. We have 1 arcane spell too in a Kodama's Reach, plus he's just a 4-mana 4/4. Glissa Sunseeker is one of the better of the things I have as like a tutor target for time of need because she can just start blowing up artifacts left and right. Dwinin is a 4-mana 3/4 with Reach who can do a bunch of other stuff if I have elves, and there are a few elves in the deck. Baru, Fist of Krosa. Oh, hey, I do have another druid in the deck. How about that? This is one of the reasons why I tried to pack as many forests as I could into the deck because his effect only triggers when I play forests. So giving +1/+1 and trample to my whole team's great. Obviously, Grandeur is irrelevant. Then we have some big spells like Myojin of Life's Web, which can let me just empty my hand. That probably has tons of cards in it if Reiki's been surviving. And he's a huge threat that can be indestructible if I need him to be. Patron of the Orochi is nice. It gives me the same ability as Seedborn Muse, except on a bigger body. And it has to tap to do it. No, it really doesn't because it untaps itself. Seki Season's Guide is another very good spirit, an 8-mana 8/8, who becomes very difficult for the opponent to deal with because if they deal damage to it, it just starts spawning 1/1 colorless spirit tokens, and then you can also just bring Seki back by sacrificing spirits. Chroma's Memorial is one of the good win conditions in the deck. Just making my whole team have all those keywords is awesome. Also legendary, as everything in this deck is. Namada Grove Guardian can turn out Saprolings and then pump Saprolings. Vertiloth the Ancient is sort of similar to Namada. It's a 6-mana 4/7 who has an awesome kicker cost that lets you put a bunch of Saproling creatures into play, and it pumps all Saprolings and Tree Folk. Jugon the Rising Star is just a big dragon who is difficult to deal with because when he dies, he pumps something up. Sylvos is another card who's difficult to deal with. He has Trample and Regenerate, always a good combination on a huge body. And Honden of Life's Web pumps out spirits, lets me draw a card when I play it, like all legendaries. This is another Anthem effect for our whole board that draws us a card. Kodama the North Tree, another hard to deal with trample creature with Shroud. Jol Real can turn all my lands into creatures. Arashi is just a 5-mana 5/5 who at times can deal with creatures with flying. Tamio's Journal is the most recent addition to the deck, which I think should be a staple in Commander, a lot of Commander decks anyway. Investigating every upkeep and then turning into a tutor effect is pretty amazing. And Predator Flagship is a legendary form of removal that we have. Our deck is low on removal. That's its biggest weakness. It's always green's biggest weakness, but we have Predator Flagship, which can destroy basically anything if you have enough mana. Here in this last stack are cards that care about me having lots of cards in my hand or care about me drawing cards. So we have Venser's Journal, which can gain us a bunch of life, also makes our hand infinitely sized. Psychosis Crawler, which damages my opponent every time I draw cards and has size equal to that, the number of cards in my hand. Alhamar's Archive is great because it lets me draw double the cards I would, which means every time I play a legendary spell, I get to draw 2 cards. It also doubles life gain, but I think Venser's Journal is the only way I have of gaining life. And then Masumaro is a legend whose power is equal to twice the number of cards in my hand, so he's often quite large. So that's a deck. It's very simple. It's just a sort of deck that sort of grinds people out by playing tons of legendary spells that happen to also be cantrips. and just sort of mobbing the board with card advantage and just winning that way. So I'll play 3 games with it now, so I hope you'll watch those. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.